You're going to get your best deal going and looking at it in person and building the relationship. I'm a big proponent of go and get your eyes on the property because there are so many things that you're not going to see unless you're there. And the relationship. You can't have as good of a relationship over the phone. You can't. It's impossible. But you go and you see somebody in person and you see their face. You start building a relationship with them. The guard comes down and you can get a better deal.
The DealMachine REI Podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. I am your host, co-host Ryan Haywood, with me, David Lecco, and today we are going to talk about setting appointments and how to be effective at setting appointments, what to do, what to look for, what to ask, and how to build a bridge between what you want and what the seller wants and how to intermingle those two things.
Yeah, I've got this feeling in my stomach when you're talking about an appointment that actually makes me feel nervous, like, oh, I'm going to mess up. And I'm tiptoeing around what I'm saying with the seller. Is there a way you can get rid of that feeling for me?
No. In fact, I think the best thing to do with that feeling is to just accept that feeling, because that just portrays you as a genuine person. You have a feeling, a nervousness about presenting an offer or talking to someone about their situation, and that can bring emotions into it. And emotions are fine. Emotions are good. It shows that you're authentic and not just in it for yourself. And I think that the best deals can come from a point of sincere help, especially when you're working with sellers that do have a point of distress.
Yes, because one of the things I realize is I can't do this deal unless I do get it for a good price.
Right.
And so that makes me feel uncomfortable with my typical willingness and interest in helping somebody, because it feels like there's a conflict of interest there. How do you deal with that? I know you're going on an appointment today.
I am. You know, I can go back a little bit to past appointments, and I've always known, like, going into the deal, you kind of do a little bit of research and a little bit of prep, so you have an idea of what you want your asking price to be. But something that I have learned in the process of doing as many as I have done, the presentation of your offer does not get easier. You feel a little bit more comfortable in doing it, but a lot of times your offer price is, in some ways in your mind, might seem offensive. It's calculated. You know how you're getting there, and you can explain that. And as long as you're doing that, as long as you're prepared to explain how you got to your position or how you got to your number, that in and of itself helps alleviate it. It doesn't make the ease any easier. It doesn't make delivering a low asking price or a low offer any easier, but at least it becomes a little bit smoother when you can say, the reason I'm here is because of this, this, and this. This is how I got to this number. That doesn't mean that they're gonna say yes, but the many times I've walked in properties and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, so that actually helps me out in something that I do and explains it, because I know that in order for me to get a deal as an investor and to make the deal work, meaning that if it's a rental property, it's going to cash flow and make me money instead of suck money from my bank account every month, is that I've gone through a logical process of seeing what houses like this are worth in perfect condition, subtract the repair cost, subtract what my profit should be for actually doing this work and managing it and make sure it goes successfully, and then presenting it to the seller and that way, right? That way I'm not just offending them by giving them an offer for $4,000 on their house. They can see how I calculated it and why I'm giving that. And that at least that makes me feel good that I'm being really transparent with why I'm giving that offer. So
yeah, transparency and authenticity. You can't go wrong with those two things. When you're being deceitful or you're coming from a position of me, that is so evident. In most cases, people know that. I feel it in a point where even sometimes sellers are in that position where they are the ones that are being deceiving. You'll ask questions leading up to the appointment. Well, what's the condition of this? What's the condition of this? Oh, it's great. Everything's good. It's ready to go. But then I show up to the appointment and everything is good and ready to go from 1970. In a perspective of when they put the house together, yeah, it was great. But in order for me to do something with this and make this a good deal, I would have to do this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes the shoe's on the other foot. But in our roles and in our responsibility of putting offers together and going on appointments, just be real. It's okay to show the emotion of, this is uncomfortable. I don't like giving this offer. This is not a fun offer to make, especially when you know that they are wanting a lot more than you're going to offer. Like that does not feel good, no matter what.
So the step right before getting onto an appointment is usually like getting a phone call, right? And you're a firm believer, I've heard you say this, that you need to go and see the house. You said nobody likes receiving a lowball offer. And the biggest thing that you can do to build rapport and also see what the true condition of the house is, you can't take their word for it that it's all ready to go, is by actually getting there, spending some time with them and spending some time in the house, right?
Yeah, you're going to get your best deal of going and looking at it in person and building the relationship, or putting a bridge between their point of distress and your point of interest. Like, you have to build a bridge between those things. I have heard sometimes that gap is pretty huge, Sometimes it's pretty far apart, but acknowledging, hey, where you are and where I am is pretty large. Is there a way that we can kind of close that in a little bit? Because I can't make a deal where you're at and you can't make a deal where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So, but those are questions that you can't really ask without being there, without seeing it. And I know a lot of people do it remotely, and that has its place in this wholesale and real estate world. But I'm a big proponent of go and get your eyes on the property, because there are so many things that you're not going to see unless you're there. And the relationship, you can't have as good of a relationship over the phone. You can't. It's impossible. Or just texting. But you go and you see somebody in person and you see their face, you start building a relationship with them, the guard comes down and you can get a better deal.
So we know it's important to go on an appointment because we want to build rapport with the seller, and it's a great opportunity to do that. And we also want to verify the exact condition of things in the house. And there's no better way of doing that than if you're right there in person. So I know you've got an appointment coming up today, Ryan.
I do.
Tell me about how that's going to go.
So yesterday afternoon, I got a phone call from a postcard, which is not an uncommon adventure. So asking questions immediately, the guy's like, hey, I got a postcard in the mail saying you're interested in the house. The very first thing I ask, can I get the address? So then I just say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about the house? And I immediately start getting some information automatically, because I know the area that I live in pretty well. He tells me the address, and I know I have a house like 3 or 4 doors down. So I know exactly where this place is located. I know exactly which house it is. And I'm really excited that he called, because I've been eyeballing this place since we started. I've had my eyes on it. Why? The roof is in horrible condition. So I asked a couple qualifying questions. What's the condition of the house? It's pretty good. But he willingly acknowledged the roof is bad. The roof needs to be replaced. But then in the conversation, it also comes out that there's a house behind it that he owns, and he would like to get rid of that one as well. So this is an option for me to pick up 2 properties. Both are rented. We know that both are distressed. We don't know what distressed really means. He gave me a very vague, they need some updates. If it's anything like the roof, we might be in a significant rehab kind of position, because the roof is just super old. So today I'm going there at 3:00. I'm going to do my typical walk through the house, observe what I can see. He's got these properties rented. Are they the standard of rent that I'm comfortable with? If they're not, what dollar amount is going to get them there? So those are the types of things I'm looking at. I'm checking the water heater, I'm checking the furnace, I'm checking the electrical, because those are all big ticket items that are going to factor in this price.
So one of the things when you're saying this, you're like, you're checking the water heater, you're checking this, you're checking that. That actually makes me a little bit nervous whenever I'd go to an appointment and be like, oh, okay, there's no way I'm going to remember to check everything. I don't even know what I'm looking for. And one way that I combated that in my very first appointment was, he called me back after receiving like 7 postcards. He's like, I would like an offer on my house. And I was like, okay, which house is it? And then he gave me the address. So I went there. I felt like I didn't know the entire checklist of things I should check. And so eventually I was just like, hey, why don't you show me around and I'll take a bunch of pictures. So I took like 100 photos of everything. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but that way I could go home, print out a checklist or whatever of rehab costs and figure it out and I could reference the pictures. So I'm pretty analytical, and that's how I was able to handle that. And it made the actual appointment go a lot smoother for me because I wasn't fretting about missing something, and I could instead focus on just talking with Henry, was his name, that sold me that first house that I got off market.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.